Hello, everybody. We're going with it. Welcome back. This is Grant, Daryl, and Cynthia for Raika Technologies. This is the Raika Show. The guys are making fun of me because apparently every time I say hello, everyone, I sound like a leprechaun after our April Fool's, May Day video that we put out. It's just what it is. So leprechaun or not, I got a bit of the Irish.
Own it.
I'm owning it. So today, last year, sometime around February, I want to say, blockchain was like exploding and Bitcoin was worth all this money and like everybody and their brother was talking about cryptocurrency and investing in cryptocurrency and companies. There was a thing that we wrote about it in the blog, but Kodak just announced that it was going to start looking at potential ways of using blockchain to protect IP of photographers and videographers and stuff like that. And their stock increased by 400% in one day just because they used the word blockchain.
Blockchain.
So we actually wrote, yes, the number of times our podcast will get listened to will be directly related to the number of times we say the word blockchain. So that particular post was a buzzwords that suck post. And we've done one podcast on buzzwords that suck. And we'll do more of those because those ones are always really popular and people like them. But I wanted to specifically sort of circle back around to blockchain. We're a year and a half past the time when we did that initial post and everybody was going nutso. We could talk about Bitcoin a little bit and cryptocurrency with this too, because somehow it all seems to get intertwined and related. Like the only thing you can track with blockchain is cryptocurrency. And so the two are, you're going to speak to that more, Daryl, because I don't understand a lot about I don't understand why those two things are always talked about together, but it seems like they always are. But I want to kind of circle back around and say, what's the state of it today? Where is it at? Is it still mania? Are people still making money hand over fist, or has there been sort of a settle out to like a more normalized level? And I'm curious, and how do we feel about it? I mean, I'm curious to see where this goes.
I think it has settled. It is not at the mania that it was in December, January.
Yeah. December 2017, January
right.
2018. We wrote about it like end of January, early February in 2018.
Bitcoin had approached $20,000.
Where is Bitcoin now? Do you know?
I want to say it's around in the $6,000 range. So it's still pretty decent. I mean, it's recovered. I mean, it dropped quite a bit. It was down, I want to say, to like $1,000.
But what happened to all those people who invested at $19,000?
They lost a lot of money. Yeah. So I don't know. Sorry, sucks to be you, I guess.
Remember you said it's a calculated gamble.
But that's exactly what it is, right? Okay, so it's still hovering around 6,000.
But also some things have happened. Our government has cracked down significantly on these ICOs.
Okay,
that was one of the reasons why I think it had jumped so high back then, was because everybody was coming out with an ICO, right? And a lot of them, I would say, maybe most of them were scams.
Yeah.
Now, how do they crack down? What agency? Like
SEC, I think.
And so is there's like regulations in place now about when you can release these? So they're regulating it more the way the stock market's regulated for IPO.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And so
what
what
you
you
say?
say?
Been interesting to broach that because there's no, what do you call that? Common law, basically precedents of, well, are they really public? Because they're not selling shares. They don't have stock certificates.
Right.
So they must have had to approach that creatively at first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's like, do we use the stock market as a model to figure out how to regulate that? Or is there some other model and we're creating it newly?
Yeah. Especially since they are token, they are coin, they are almost their own, in some ways,
currency.
their own stock market.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
The enforcement of it, and this is the blockchain aspect of it, the enforcement of, or I won't say enforcement, but, sort of how the token, how the coin is managed is placed on the blockchain. People vote on the blockchain for this thing.
I see. So they're buying and selling and all those transactions are in blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why these two things are so inextricably related to each other, because you could have blockchain that could do other kinds of things.
Absolutely.
But cryptocurrency, there's no way to track that. It's almost like blockchain is the bank for cryptocurrency.
No, they are one and the same. They are one and the same. It's
Explain
just
that because I really don't understand.
Cryptocurrency is the immediate use, the popular use of it, everybody's speculating on the currency of the value of these different blockchains.
Okay.
But the real value ultimately is going to be in the blockchain. That's where people are. And
that's why Ethereum's focus was much more on that.
The blockchain technology
share
itself.
I forget what they call that thing, but there was that whole
ledger.
Self-governing company type things.
Yes.
That allow for complete decentralization of an organization and of controlling a process or something like that.
Yeah, because you can actually write code on the blockchain and have that code executed on the blockchain. You know, which is a concept that is kind of hard to.
It's really hard to wrap your brain
around because it's almost like you're saying, you mean I can write code on my dollar bill and have that executed? Yeah, kind of.
And how does anybody who would be transacting on your dollar bill past that, do they know that there's code written on it and what happens with that code?
Yeah.
Is that transparent in the process? And do I have a choice to say, I don't want to buy money that I don't want to spend your dollar. I don't want to get your dollar. I want to get his dollar because he didn't put any.
That's sort of the distributed nature is your computer is going to execute a little piece of that code and write it back to the blockchain.
Okay, so then does this just become a really, really efficient way of putting out viruses and getting
This is a big Turing machine.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
It's another computer.
It's an
highly
instruction chain, a program chain.
Oh, a Turing machine.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's what it is. Because you can have instructions that would tell it how to process other things, which could create more process.
So does this at some point become the Terminator?
Well, so here's the problem.
Fear blockchain.
Here's the problem is
blockchain.
and the reason why it hasn't taken over is processing all of these transactions, executing all this code is not fast. Right? It's not necessarily slow, you know, but
compared
Bitcoin,
to Visa and MasterCard transactions.
Visa and MasterCard can do in seconds what takes 15 minutes for Bitcoin to execute.
So this sounds like it sort of overlaps like why Lisp didn't catch on was because there weren't machines
that could
fast enough to process it efficiently.
Right. And that's a great analogy because Lisp was created in 1957. It is a brilliant programming language that, as it turns out, needed a lot of processing power, needed a lot of memory. And we are just now, 60 years later,
getting to a point where we had that.
Where we have enough and everybody is starting to revisit it and go, oh my God, this is a brilliant language. You know, meanwhile, we ventured off into C and we ventured off into Java and C++ and all these other languages. And yet people are coming back and going. And so I think that's what's going to happen with blockchain. Probably in another 5 to 10 years, maybe 15, everybody's going to go, oh, wait a minute. Now this works.
Because it can handle the transaction load that people actually, that life actually requires to get done.
To make it practical.
Right?
Yeah. And that's one of the problems with it, using it in a retail environment is
there's too many transactions.
I can't wait 15 minutes for you to give me my money.
No.
You know?
Yeah.
So I'm not going to accept this coin on my website because that just takes too long. Visa's going to give me my money immediately.
Right.
Or whoever.
Right. This is fascinating.
Yeah, it is. It is really interesting technology. Everybody's been predicting the doom of it. That's stupid. The doom was short term, but we've seen this time and time again with technology.
Yeah, there's always that early spike of the mania, and then the thing and its value actually proves out over time, and it's never at the level of mania for a long time. But that doesn't mean that it's not valuable.
Yeah, well, it's like the focus has been on nothing but one implementation.
Which was the coin, which was the token.
The cryptocurrency.
The cryptocurrency.
And that's been what people have focused on. And somebody smart's back there saying, you know, we're not selling burgers, we're buying real estate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
You don't get it.
Exactly.
And people are going to start seeing that where it's like, cryptocurrency, that was a flash in the pan. We've already come up with something different and better for that. Yeah. But this blockchain thing.
So is Kodak onto something in that you could use blockchain as a way of protecting IP?
I think that's a great use of it. Yeah.
So explain how that. So we think of cryptocurrency in terms of money. So it's easy to say you and I transacted. You know, I bought something from you in exchange for cryptocurrency in that transaction, so that each of our, you know, you have less cryptocurrency and now I have more. Like that makes sense because we think about it in terms of a bank.
It's your Bitcoin. It's about to be my Bitcoin.
and I sleep just fine. So explain how blockchain and cryptocurrency aren't the same thing, and how blockchain could be used for other things. Like how would Kodak see this as a possible implementation for protecting IP related to like photographs?
It's a secure record keeping system.
It's
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it's
a public ledger.
It is a public ledger. It's a distributed ledger. I think probably what a lot of people think of when they think of Kodak is actual film. I don't think this applies there.
No, this is all digital photography.
It's all digital photography.
Videography, which David, my fiance, his sister is a photographer, and she's a huge problem with this. Like, she's terrified to put anything online because it can so easily be stolen, and she gets no credit for that, and she gets no money for that, and she puts a lot of time and money into getting the pictures that she gets.
So I'm guessing, and I'm just sort of riffing here because I don't know Kodak's implementation, but they encode, they basically, she would put her image, her digital image, on the blockchain. If you wanted to license her image, if you want to buy it, the code would be written in such a way that it would record the fact that you bought this image, and presumably you could then
if somebody else got hold of that image and there was nothing in the chain, that image wouldn't display itself, or it would have some
there's
other...
There's almost no way to get it without there being a record of you getting it and an automatic charge.
An automatic charge. Or at the very least, my guess is that she could say, Cynthia, you gave this to someone that you shouldn't have.
Exactly.
So now I'm charging you for it.
Exactly.
And maybe would it provide a way, maybe even...
to go after that infringement?
No, I was going to say that would there be a way for me to say, I'd like that image and I'm not paying... Will you automatically get a watermarked version of the image?
So maybe the code on that thing.
So it would say, well, if you want it for free, you have to watch ads.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, interesting. Okay.
And so then apply that also to music now. Which there are blockchains doing that.
So this is what, when you say you can apply a piece of code to a block, her photograph now is smarter than just a photograph with metadata, where it actually says, if somebody tries to do something with this thing, either charge the person who is the last person in the chain for that, or automatically watermark it, or whatever that bit of code is. And so now not only are you protecting your IP, but you also have a chain of evidence.
Exactly.
So if somebody did get hold of something, you can go back and say, this is the person who's liable.
Yeah.
Whereas you have none of that now.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, once your image shows up on
this is
Google
brilliant,
Images,
isn't it?
Right, it's out there, and you can't do anything. I mean, they've tried. You remember, it used to be on Google Images, you could go and you could say, just show me the image, and they would do that. Well, they got sued by all these image providers, and so Google said, we're not going to do that anymore. But they still take you to the website where the image is, where you can, if you know what you're doing and it's not that hard, you can still get the image. There's nothing anybody can do to stop you. That's just the nature of the web.
Right.
And so with this, they can then say, all right, well, if this is a valuable image to you, you can be compensated for it as you rightly are, as you're deserving of.
Okay,
so... Now, would there be a fee? I mean, at least, could there also be a fee then to put your photograph into the system?
Yeah.
Sort of the way that if you want to license stuff on Shutterstock.
Yeah, and there should be, right? And that's one aspect of this is...
You pay to get a little protection.
Well, you pay to get a little protection, but also remember, all this code is distributed. It's running on everybody. A little bit of it is running on everybody's computer.
Sure.
You want to compensate them for their CPU time. So when I pay to put my image on this chain, a little bit of that money is going to go to all these people who are going to process that.
I seem to remember there being a special field for processing payment amount.
Yeah, transaction fee.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That goes to the next... Because there's all that hashing, and that's the whole thing about calculating the next blockchain hash and agreeing on that.
And so this brings us around to the mining. That is effectively mining, if you will. It in the cryptocurrency sense, it's because of the way Bitcoin is derived or is designed. You're actually mining. You're calculating cryptographic hashes because in doing so, you release it. The system releases more Bitcoin.
Is there a limit to the amount of Bitcoin available?
Yes, it's something like 23 million Bitcoin.
I can't remember. I used to know the number because I read that white paper.
And do we know how many are out there? Once they hit 23 million, that's all there ever is.
That's all there ever is. Okay. But it also gets harder and harder and harder.
Right.
Every time you mine a new Bitcoin, the next
one is that much harder.
And that's why they have
longer to calculate the next one.
And so that's why they have all these rigs made up of GPUs. I mean, there are whole data centers in China where it's just nothing but racks of GPUs doing nothing but mining Bitcoin.
Interesting.
And Ethereum and some of these other ones.
Yeah. And as the value of the Bitcoin goes up on the open market, they make huge amounts of profits because it doesn't take any longer to calculate than it was going to anyways, right?
Right.
So when that stuff goes to 20 grand, that data center suddenly becomes hugely profitable. And if prices drop, then you get to a point where we're spending more on the electricity.
Exactly. And the cost of the GPUs. I mean, that's why NVIDIA, people that build their own computers for gaming rigs were having a big problem back, a year and a half ago, actually getting these GPUs for their gaming rigs because all these miners were going out and buying up all of NVIDIA's stock.
Interesting. Wow. That has a ripple effect in the economy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So it's a really fascinating space, and it's, I think, like I've said before, there is a there.
Yeah.
In
blockchain specifically.
The speculation aspect that we've seen is stupid.
It's nothing different than the gold rush, right?
It's
nothing different than everybody thinking, because there was a vein of gold here, I'm going to go pan everywhere I could possibly find on this whole mountain, and there's going to be something.
There's got to be, because it's over here too.
And that's the group think mania. Right.
Meanwhile, it's the pickaxe providers and the hardware sellers. They're the ones that are making the real money.
Interesting. Okay, so now that kind of makes more sense to me about how you would use blockchain. So how would that work in music?
Well, digital music, it's no different than an image, right? So we can know.
Instead of a watermark, there's like a fart noise every 20 seconds during the song. So you can't really enjoy it.
Welcome to, there's a pot of gold at the end of that rainbow, right in the middle.
Yeah, right.
Or like the way Audio Jungle does, where like every 5 seconds it's Audio Jungle, like it's whispered in the background, and so you can't really use that. You got to buy it.
First time
I know. I was testing music for our podcast music in the beginning, and Daryl was like, "What's that talking? I think that's super distracting." I'm like, yeah, once we actually buy the music we want.
But it was so subtle on that first song that I couldn't make out what they were saying.
He's like, what is that?
And I thought, that's weird. Why are they doing that?
That's weird.
That's
is that supposed to be like...
Like, what are the lyrics to this song? Yeah. It's weird.
And it's like real out of it doesn't, there's no beat there.
Yeah. I don't think this is what's going to happen, but imagine a world where all of your audio player, iTunes, whatever you use in your car, was attached to Zune. Yep. For everybody that still has a Zune. All of these digital audio players had
Star-Lord has a Zune.
Star-Lord has a Zune. Has code built in so that every time you listen to a song, you got charged, a fraction of a penny for it. You see what I'm saying? Because that was written to the ledger and distributed out to everybody.
So would that, let's just take that a step further. Would that change the iTunes model where I no longer pay $1 and then I own the song essentially, which by the way, unless you burn it to a CD, you don't. That's part of their, But anyway, instead of paying $1 and I can listen to it as many times as I want, I only pay for it however many times I listen to it. And it's a tiny, tiny amount.
Or you could do both. I could write to the ledger, hey, I want this song in perpetuity. I don't want to have to pay a fraction.
So I'm willing to pay
$1 or whatever.
$1.29.
And that's written to the ledger. So now all of the audio systems, wherever you listen to this song, are going to go.
You don't have to pay to listen to that.
Right.
Oh, see, that's fascinating to me.
That also makes me wonder if it can tie into that idea. I don't know I think Tim Berners-Lee's part of this, but that whole thing of taking your data back.
Yeah.
Where you own your data, and I would imagine some kind of a request comes and says, I need this particular data, and you say yes or no.
Yeah.
Right.
So everybody
seems like that would be a way to do it, is putting
So think about all of these people that are giving away their data, their very valuable, incredibly valuable data to Facebook. What if they pulled it all back, put it on a blockchain, and then said, hey, Facebook, you want to make money off of my data? Great. Give me some of it.
Yeah. Interesting. So this is going to be, or some iteration of this over the next couple decades is going to be the answer to how do you protect IP? How do you protect your privacy, your almost your digital footprint in the tech world.
And this also solves another problem. I don't know if you remember back about 96, 97, 98, there was Digicoin. There were a few, because the problem then was, how do we charge a fraction of a penny? And with Visa, MasterCard, American Express,
you can't do that
it's impossible.
Because the fees are too high.
Their fees are too high.
Yeah.
Well, with a blockchain type system,
do that.
I can charge you a fraction of a penny. It's easy.
It's just a number in a database. I mean, the reality is that if you look at your bank, it's really just numbers in a database anyway.
Right.
There's no way to like fractionalize that really into money, because how do you exchange that? You know, we don't have actual currency.
I can't give you a fraction of a penny.
I can't give you a fraction of a penny. But in this, where it's literally just numbers.
A fraction of a penny, thousands and thousands of times.
So
we're going to round it.
What's interesting, we're not going to get into this today, but we do have a podcast scheduled next month where we're going to talk about the Great Hack. So Grant brought this up because this was sort of trending in social media. And I did actually watch it, and it was fascinating. And I was like, now I'm seeing how blockchain could solve that problem.
Yeah.
You know, and but it also sort of like opens up the question, once you've opened up the ketchup bottle, how do you get the toothpaste back in the tube, right?
Yes.
Toothpaste back in the ketchup bottle?
Yeah.
What do you brush your teeth with?
I don't brush my teeth. That's gross. But that's another question is, can blockchain put the toothpaste back in the tube?
So I don't understand the analogy.
So let's say I'm thinking about Cheryl, my sister-in-law, who it has all these photographs, some of which are out there.
Oh.
Can you get it back?
No, those are out there. You know, it's one of those things where once you put it on the internet, it's out there. It's
kind of done.
But for all her future
So then for Facebook
projects,
you can't really get that back either.
No.
Like all of the stuff that's already out there and the way that that's being used, you really can never get that back. What we're saying is we're trying to find a way to establish a way to say, from this point forward, if you want something, now it's going to be tracked, and now it's going to be licensed, and you're going to pay. If you're making money on it, you're going to pay.
What they have now is not valuable anymore.
Oh,
it's
good
already
point.
tomorrow.
Yeah, good
What they're
point.
buying now is you're purchasing, what you look at,
what you're doing today,
knowing your address and
or
your
what
demographics.
You're going to do tomorrow.
That they could have gotten that anywhere anyway. So it's really what they're buying is your behavior.
Got it.
Tracking,
exactly.
Behavior tracking,
which is changing. I mean,
it's
ever changing because we are ever
stuff.
changing creatures.
Yeah.
So they absolutely still want to have access to that.
I get it.
The
Now
way
I
you
get
put
it.
that back in the bottle, and probably the way we should as a society is, and I hate to say this because I'm usually not in favor of this, is laws that basically say, Facebook, you have to pay these people if you want to use their data. And you have to be transparent as to what data you're tracking and how. So.
And then that comes down to international law, which really doesn't exist.
Right.
And how do you protect that if it's other countries that are using it, or companies in other countries? And
but with blockchain, you can see all that.
Because that's not about jurisdictional lines and,
If Facebook wants to use my information, they have to
wherever
pay me
it
for
shows
it,
up.
and I can see what they used.
Yeah.
And I can see who they sold it to.
And so, but all of this, based on the intensity of it, definitely hinges on hardware.
Right now, right? I mean, going back to the Lisp analogy.
They can't process all that stuff if.
And that's because
that
for the purpose of people who might still be questioning, it's because in order to validate this transaction in the blockchain, you have to validate everything that came before it too, right?
Yes.
And that's why it takes so long.
Yes.
Okay.
It's so
you have to start. It's not like you're like, I'm looking at your bank account and it says this, and I'm looking at your bank account and it says this, so I'm going to make that swap. It says, you want this transaction to happen. I have to go back to everything in the chain that led up to that transaction and validate that those things are valid. That's how you keep it from being hackable.
And all of these computers, let's just say for the sake of argument, to simplify it, you have 10 computers all doing this.
Yeah.
They all have to exchange that information.
Yeah.
And there's algorithms so that if 5 of those disagree with the other 5, how do you
work that out?
And now we get to the 51% problem that Satoshi, I think, talked about, which is the only way to skew the ledger, to change the ledger
is
nefariously.
To get 51% of the computers to agree on the wrong thing.
Which apparently has happened.
Really?
Since, yes.
So blockchain is not unhackable.
it's well, I mean, it's a coordinated effort,
Okay.
but
no,
I think it happened.
They've found weaknesses before.
They have found weaknesses, yeah. But I mean, the 51% particular thing, I think that was a coordinated effort. No, there have been weaknesses. They've also found that it's not almost on the whole, it's not as anonymous as everybody has been thinking it was.
So Ocean's 15, the movie, is going to be about 15 of them and different computers in different parts of the world changing the blockchain, right? Versus like robbing a bank.
Can we just have Ocean's 11? I feel like we're going.
Well, so they had Ocean's 11, Ocean's 12.
Or Ocean's 8.
Then they did Ocean's 8.
Ocean's 8, yeah.
Was there an Ocean's 13?
No.
No.
11.
11, 12. I feel like there was another one.
Ocean's 11, Ocean's 12. There was Ocean's 13.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
and then they went to Ocean's 8.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Because it takes fewer women to accomplish the same thing that men are trying to do. I totally just made that up, but it's kind of funny.
No, because you can't get 11 or 12 women to agree with each other.
8 seems to be the perfect balance.
And even there was some infighting in there.
I haven't seen that movie yet. I love the new Ocean's 11, though. It's one of my favorite movies.
I haven't actually seen the movie either, but I just remember from the previews, I'm like, oh, it's all women. That's funny. Because I think in the original Ocean's 11, there was only one.
Well, there's the 1960s versions, the Rat Pack.
But there was no women in that one.
And not as part of the Oceans.
Yeah.
As part of his 11.
Yeah.
No. And the same for
the remake.
For the remake
with George Clooney in it. There was no women. Oh, she was like on the periphery. I remember now. Yeah, I remember.
Well, then the second one had Julia Roberts. It was an interesting take the way they did that. But yeah.
All right, cool. Well, this is definitely
welcome to movie reviews.
Well,
I'm sorry. No, the first one had Julia Roberts.
Yeah, she was in
but
there
she wasn't.
Yeah, she wasn't part of the whole thing.
Group like she kind of was in the second one.
Yeah.
You can call this segment Raika Tomatoes.
Raika Tomatoes.
Raika Tomatoes. That's actually kind of funny. I'm having lots of podcasting ideas.
Now we need to have a movie segment.
I know, right?
Raika Tomatoes movie segment.
Mystery Science Theater type deal.
Yeah.
MST3K with Raika Technologies. I mean, you're both bald, so that works for the little like robot-y guys. Yep. And we got sarcasm coming out of every orifice. Right. So,
robot-y guys.
All right. Anything else about blockchain, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, anything like that we didn't cover that might be important?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks for coming along on this cryptocurrency blockchain journey. It's been really interesting to see how in the last 18 to 20 months this has changed. Mm-hmm. Really, again, just at that sort of mania versus like what's really there. Because there is a there. I mean, clearly we can see it, whether or not we're at a place yet. And I think it's clear that we're not, where processing speeds can keep up and where we've really gotten the full vision of how could this be hackable and what are the real weaknesses and how do you prevent against that to make it as secure as we all sort of feel like our banks are. Mm-hmm. We're not there yet, but there is definitely something here. And we hope that we can use the word blockchain enough that Raika stock goes through the roof.
Yeah.
All right. For Grant, Daryl, and Cynthia, this has been the Raika Show, sponsored by Raika Technologies. And we hope to see you guys next time.